Is Indigenous homelessness defined differently than settler homelessness?
Um, yeah, there's another interesting question. I'm trying to think now about how to think of it because initially I thought, like, why do we need to, um, like, why have a question where we sort of frame Indigenous homelessness against a backdrop of settler homelessness? I was just putting it so eloquently to someone before our before our meeting. It's sort of like, why do we need to define Indigenous people's experiences against the backdrop of settler people's experiences? So I almost prefer to like take that out of the equation and say, do Indigenous people experience homelessness differently than other
Hmm.
people maybe? And I
Hmm.
also, I mean, I've been reading a lot, because I do a lot of research with Indigenous people and just on a wide range of issues, and homelessness being one of them, and throughout my career. And I think I've been reading a lot lately about settler colonialism, just like recent sort of discourses in settler colonialism, and a lot of the concerns around the sort of like dichotomy of like settler indigenous, that settler indigenous dichotomy that these sort of discourses create. I'm not sure that they're entirely productive towards like and moving towards reconciliation. So anyway, but if I just think about it, is indigenous homelessness, or the way that indigenous people experience homelessness, unique to the, when compared to the way that other people experience homelessness? Um, yes, and it's characterized by, how is it characterized? Um, there are issues related to racism, issues related to like colonialism, colonial structures, histories of colonialism, intergenerational trauma, that are distinct, that other people, non-indigenous people, don't experience, and so that impacts homelessness. But what I also find really important to thinking about indigenous peoples, and sometimes the way that indigenous peoples experience homelessness, is that I often talk about how homelessness it's not about a roof over your head. That's houselessness. Homelessness is about not having a home. And so for many indigenous people, that might be characterized as a relationship with land rather than a relationship with a structure. And so, and not to say that that's just unique to indigenous people, but I think it's very, um, um, it can be a very strong dynamic in indigenous experiences of homelessness. So being separated from land and not necessarily about having a roof over your head. I know when I was in Labrador, and most of my research is very sort of community based, community engaged research, and so I was doing a lot of work with community partners, but also with homeless people and Inuit and First Nations people who are experiencing homelessness in Labrador. And there are a lot of people who they didn't have a house, but they didn't necessarily want a house. They just wanted to set up a tent and live on the land. And for them, they felt at home living that way. And but that would be counterintuitive to often what we think about as, whether someone's homeless or not. If you're living in a tent out in the woods, we would think of that as being homeless. But for these people, they didn't feel that way. And there was also a real push to bring these people uh, from off the land and into, either have them admitted to hospital or have like police involvement to remove them from the land, even though it wasn't necessarily, they had every right to be there on that land. So sorry, I'm going on and on, but I think,
No, that's great.
one of the ways that I problematize our way of thinking about homelessness and indigenous experiences of homelessness is that it's not necessarily about having a roof over your head, but it's about a home, and sometimes that home is just about connection to land as well.
Hmm. Hmm. For sure. For sure.